Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here. Today we're going to be talking about meta decks in NOD and GDI, and I want to talk about the MLRS GDI deck that is quite popular right now, and I'm also going to look at a aggro NOD deck with a little bit of a variation from some of the ones that I have talked about before. So what you can see in the middle is the standard variation of this with Jackson and Hammerhead. This is the one that I see quite a lot of on ladder. It used to be Strong Arm, but people have kind of adopted Jackson as it works really well with the MLRS. But you can still use Strong Arm instead of Jackson. And the Hammerhead can very easily be swapped out for the Talon or the Kodiak. The Kodiak is the Alicia Destiny version. You could also run missiles instead of jump jets, although I wouldn't totally recommend it, as jump jets are very, very useful at putting pressure on opposing MLRSs or opposing Giga Cannons. So we're going to have a look at a replay from Blade, and this is the deck that he is using with his unit levels, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he does in this game. Now this game is okay for the MLRS and the Giga Cannon, especially if you can get it in the center portion of the map, hooked between the missile and the rocks behind it. It gets good control over a lot of the choke points, especially the MLRS, which has got that arcing pattern which works quite nicely. So you can see the Blade opens and scouts with War Dogs. He then sees that his opponent doesn't build two sets of laser squads, and he can see the War Factory being built, which does mean that he's going to gear up to go for a Pitbull. Now take a look at the positioning of the War Dogs here. He's actually placed the War Dogs in a position where it pincers his laser squad that he's dealing with, so two War Dogs will trade well into an opponent's laser or missile squad, but it also sets up a choke point block, which means that the Silver Cruise can't move his attack bikes through without getting rid of the War Dogs, and that's a really useful choke point to block, especially if you're aggressing onto the bottom pad like he is with those War Dogs down there. It just means you kind of stifle your opponent's ability to resupply that area, which is a really, really good way of just getting control of the bottom portion of this map. So I want to talk a little bit about the MLRS placement. Blade boosted the MLRS into position to allow it to get control of that center platform, beating the Giga Cannon into that situation. This is a really, really good play from Blade in general, because the Giga Cannon was never going to be able to get into a two-tile radius and deal with the MLRS, especially if the MLRS has its shots up and available, which it did, and so that made Silver Cruise move his Giga Cannon to a suboptimal placement on the map, which was below and only dealing with the bottom left-hand platform. This has allowed Blade to get control of the center portion of the map and the top platform most importantly, and then using some clever body blocking and some unit switching, including the fast movement speed of the jump jets, he was able to secure the first missile. And this is a deck that does do well when you secure the first missile. Another one of these decks that it really relies on mounting pressure on your opponent, especially if you're going up against a tech deck. This is one of those decks that it can actually hold its own versus tech units in some instances, but realistically it's much better if you just get the ability to take the first missile and take your time away from your opponent. So I talked about the jump jets being better than missiles. This is the reason why jump jets are better than missiles. You've seen several instances in this game where jump jets have put pressure on the Giga Cannon. And actually, you can see that Blade is not going to go back into the MLS whilst he sees his opponent has a Giga on the field. If the opponent has built the Giga and is positioning it, putting it into position more readily than you are going to lose that matchup if you try and get your MLRS to set up and take on the Giga Cannon before you've got it into the same position that his Giga Cannon is. So whoever builds their Giga Cannon or MLRS first usually has the advantage in terms of the mirror matchup on these two range units. So you're going to see Blade for the most part here now going to War Dogs, and then once he sees there is no Giga Cannon to deal with, he goes into the MLRS and he boosts this up. This means it's going to deal really, really readily and very easily with these buggies, and now he can just look to body block and contest every platform and win the game, which he has done here. Just a really, really good play, knows exactly when to build his MLRS, knows when to set it up and when to boost it, and doesn't try to waste the MLRS into a Giga Cannon that's already on the field. So that was a really nice demonstration of how to play that deck. We're now going to talk about this NOD aggro deck, which has kind of changed a little bit. A lot of people now running it with Oxana instead of Seth, and they are running it with the Banshee Venom combo at the up end. When I first did the NOD aggro deck, I talked about using Militants and Venoms without any Banshees, but this has kind of now become the standard NOD aggro deck, with Banshees being pretty good against MLRS and Giga Cannons, and that's maybe the reason that you've seen this evolution happen. In terms of subs, you can take out Oxana for Kane or Oxana for Seth, and at the bottom there are two variations of the deck that I talked about. You can run Buggy instead of Venom, or you can run the deck that you've seen me run in my videos before, which was the Militants and the Venom and no Banshee. Although if you run into those 2 range units like the Giga Cannon or the MLRS, then you are going to have a bad time. So we're going to have a look at Benven 2, who's probably one of the best players of this deck on the server right now. He has a 95% win rate over 117 games, I think. I think that's what the graphics said anyway. Whatever the graphics said was right, but let me tell you, this guy is insane at using this deck. So you'll see him now, he's going up against the War Dogs, and he's going to assume this is the MLRS deck. Most people would assume with a War Dog opening that you're going to be facing up against the MLRS deck. He sees the Rhino come out, and the Rhino isn't like a great unit, especially at low levels, and so Laser Troopers at 1 level higher should be good enough at dealing with the Rhino, which you can see here. Benven is very happy to just spam Laser Troopers into the Rhino. They are a very acceptable answer and should deal with it pretty easily. You'll notice also that he's letting his opponent, for the most part, charge the pad. This is a really, really important thing, because as soon as this tank comes out, he knows that he's going to have control versus War Dogs and Rhinos, and you're going to see here that he boosts it onto the platform. He is now in complete control. The immediate and obvious answer is going to be jump jets, and he saved those flame troopers for this very instance. Now, Mannyman decides that his options are limited when it comes to trying to contest the platform versus a Scorpion tank and a set of flame troopers, so he tries to put pressure on the Harvester, maybe to sort of stifle the economy of Benven and end up in a superior position. But Benven played that early game so well. He didn't overcommit with units. He knew that the Scorpion was going to be his best option after seeing a War Dog and a Rhino spam, and he kept the flame troopers to the side in that choke point position on the top side of the map to A, prevent a jump jet rush onto his base, but also B, in the case of jump jets being used as a direct counter to his Scorpion, he'd just have them there ready to pincer onto the platform, making it very difficult for his opponent to actually have an answer that is easily obtainable in the early game through the War Factory or through the barracks, because War Factory is going to get countered by the Scorpion, and anything from the barracks is generally going to get countered by the Flame Troopers. So it was a 1-2 combo that worked really well for Benven, and now it's just kind of business as usual for him. He's got air superiority, the level 13 Banshees are pretty disgusting, and that's going to allow him to essentially secure the game from this point forward. But it was all off the back of that first missile play, letting his opponent charge the missile for him, and then essentially utilizing that 1-2 combo of the Flame Troopers and the Scorpion tank to make sure that there was no feasible counter that his opponent could throw at him. Alright, I'm going to run into another game here, because that was a really short one. And this is just a little bonus game between Benven again, who's running the MLRS deck that you can see. But I want to show you him defending like a very aggressive bike rush. Like, this is the way that you defend super aggressive bike rushes. It's all about pincering the bikes in, microing your Harvester behind your missile troops, so that your missile troops get maximum time to deal with the attack bikes. And you can see here that once you have established a good defensive control versus the attack bikes with your Harvester, it's very difficult for your opponent to actually get anything done here. And you can see that now that the economy is almost completely starved from WW-Fire, it's all about just doing the maximum amount of positioning with your missile troops to ensure that you keep your Harvester safe. Even if he had got the Harvester at this point in time, it would not have been worth it, because he has spent, well, that must be his 5th or his 6th bike squad now, and that's 30 apiece plus the War Factory cost, which is 40. So even if he actually picked up the Harvester at this point, it would not be worth it, and it would only be able to get his own economy jump started, which is what you'll see him end up doing here. He actually just completely ignores the first missile, which is another reason why rushing early is very, very risky versus an experienced player, because even if you do get that missile, if they have those missile troopers and they open with them, it is so difficult to make a bike rush work. And you see that he's actually now significantly behind in economy. He has got massively low units on the field, and honestly, it is very, very, very difficult for him to catch up at this point. I really don't see a way to come back once you've spent 5 or 6 spike squads and you still don't get the missile. And so you'll see that Benven actually never has to use the MLRS in this game, because he has already got such a massive advantage and a massive economy lead from the very get-go in the game, which is just a reason why it is so risky to rush with a bike. Because if it gets stopped and you can't get anything from your initial rush, there is no way in hell that you're going to end up with a positive outcome. And so you see here that he's got, again, just been charging the missile from the second missile, constantly keeping it charging, even though WW Fine was attempting to get his economy jump-started. And there is a pretty solidly close contest on this final missile, as you can see. But some body blocking and use of the Talons to counter the Banshees, which you can see here, just makes it so difficult for WW Fine to get onto this game. And again, all from that massive economy loss that you had at the start of the game from those bike rushes. And that's why bike rushing is a good strategy in some instances, but versus a player that runs missiles or lasers especially is such a difficult strategy to make work. And if it doesn't work, it is so punishing. Right, guys, I hope this was like a fun and interesting video for you, and you learned a little bit about some decks that are running around on Tiberium League, as well as that little bonus at the end on how to properly defend a micro away from a bike rush. I will see you very soon.